The decisions used to be simple. What time to wake up? What to wear? Where to go? Now it is different. Could you tell a friend from an enemy? Could you kill? Could you do worse? If someone you loved was infected, would you do the right thing? Would you give your life for another? Could you be the last of us? Welcome. Today we are diving deep into one of the most celebrated video games ever made. This is the complete breakdown of The Last of Us Part 1. Its story, its characters, its gameplay, and the legacy it left behind. Origins and inspiration. The story of The Last of Us begins long before its release in 2013. In 2009, Naughty Dog decided to split its development team in two. One half would work on Uncharted 3. The other half, led by creative director Neil Druckmann and game director Bruce Straley, would work in secret on a brand new intellectual property, something darker, more mature, and more emotionally demanding than anything the studio had done before. Interestingly, Naughty Dog had originally considered making a new entry in the Jak and Daxter franchise. But the vision that Druckmann and Straley had was too powerful to set aside. The key inspiration came from a segment of the BBC documentary series Planet Earth, which showed the real-life fungus known as Ophiocordyceps unilateralis. This fungus infects insects, checks control of their brains, and manipulates their behavior. Druckmann asked a single question: what if something like this happened to human beings? From that question, a world was born. Alongside this central concept, Druckmann drew heavily from literary and cinematic references. The bleak and stripped-down tone of Cormac McCarthy's novel The Road shaped the emotional atmosphere of the game. Stephen King's The Stand influenced its sense of civilizational collapse. And the morally gray storytelling of the Coen brothers' film No Country for Old Men helped define the tone. No easy answers, no simple heroes. Even before launch, a subtle nod was hidden in Uncharted 3, where a newspaper could be spotted mentioning a scientist struggling to understand a deadly fungus. It was a small Easter egg, a whisper of what was coming. The world of The Last of Us is set in a post-apocalyptic United States, where a mutated strain of the cordyceps fungus has devastated human civilization. By 2033, 20 years after the initial outbreak, approximately 60% of the world's population has been infected. The infected come in different stages. Early-stage infected, known as runners, are fast and aggressive but still retain some human appearance. As the infection progresses, fungal growth covers the host's face, creating creatures called clickers, who are blind but hunt using echolocation. Advanced bloaters represent the final horrific stage of transformation. The survivors live under the iron grip of Fedra, the Federal Disaster Response Agency, in militarized quarantine zones. Outside these zones, roaming groups of survivors called hunters prey on travelers. And then there are the Fireflies, a rebel militia led by a woman named Marlene, who believe that humanity's salvation lies in finding a cure. The story. The game opens in Austin, Texas on the night the outbreak begins, September 26, 2013. Joel Miller is a single father celebrating his birthday with his 12-year-old daughter Sarah and his brother Tommy. Within hours, their world falls apart. As chaos engulfs the city, the three try to escape. But during their flights, Sarah is shot and killed by a soldier following orders from above. Joel holds his daughter as she dies in his arms. That moment defines everything that follows. 20 years later, Joel is a hardened, emotionally closed-off survivor. He lives in the quarantine zone of Boston, working as a smuggler alongside his partner Tess, when Marlene, the leader of the Fireflies, approaches them with a job smuggling a teenage girl named Ellie out of the city. Joel and Tess agree. But Ellie is not an ordinary cargo. She is immune to the cordyceps fungus. She was bitten 3 weeks earlier and never turned. For the fireflies, she represents the possibility of a vaccine. For Marlene, she is the key to saving what remains of humanity. The journey that follows is structured around the 4 seasons of the year, each one carrying its own emotional weight. Summer. After Tess is bitten and sacrifices herself at the Capitol building to buy Joel and Ellie time to escape, the two press on alone. They travel to Lincoln, where they meet a survivalist named Bill who helps them find a working vehicle. They push through Pittsburgh, hunted by a gang of survivors known as the Hunters, where they meet 2 brothers, Henry and Sam. The 4 travel together briefly, finding brief moments of warmth. But the journey ends in tragedy when Sam is infected and Henry, unable to bear it, takes his own life. Autumn. Joel and Ellie reach the hydroelectric dam in Wyoming where Tommy, Joel's brother, has built a small community. Joel considers leaving Ellie in Tommy's care, unable to face the growing bond and the risk it carries. But ultimately, he cannot walk away. Together, they travel to the University of Colorado, searching for the fireflies. The university is empty. And during their escape from a group of hostile survivors, Joel is impaled by a metal bar and gravely injured. Winter. With Joel barely alive, Ellie takes charge. She hunts for food and medicine in a frozen landscape, and encounters a man named David, a charismatic leader of a survivor community. David presents himself as a potential ally. But David is a predator, a manipulator, and the leader of a group of cannibals. Ellie is captured. In a brutal, harrowing final confrontation, she kills David with a machete. When Joel finally finds her, she is covered in blood, shaking, whispering his name. Spring. Joel, recovered, leads Ellie to Salt Lake City, to the St. Mary's Hospital, where the fireflies have made their base. They have nearly reached the end of their journey. But at the hospital, Marlene delivers a devastating revelation. Ellie's brain is the source of a natural fungal growth that, unlike in all other infected, has not taken control. To extract it and develop a vaccine, the doctors must operate on her brain. The operation will kill her. Ellie is already on the operating table, unconscious, when Joel arrives. Joel kills the surgeon. He kills every firefly between him and Ellie. He carries her out of the hospital. And when Marlene, who raised Ellie, who knew her since she was born, begs him to think about what he is doing, Joel shoots her. He drives away with Ellie sleeping in the back seat. When she wakes, confused, Joel tells her a lie. He says the fireflies found many others who were immune. He says they stopped looking for a cure. He says she is safe. Ellie looks at him. A long pause. Okay, she says. The game ends there, in the silence of that word. Characters and cast. The emotional power of The Last of Us comes not just from its writing, but from the performances of the actors who brought these characters to life, and who, in many cases, helped shape them. Joel, voiced and motion captured by Troy Baker, was originally conceived as a more closed-off, warrior-like figure. Baker pushed to make him more vulnerable, more human. The Joel we experience is a man who has built walls around himself, not out of strength, but out of grief. Ellie, voiced and performed by Ashley Johnson, was initially written as more dependent on Joel. Johnson advocated strongly for Ellie to be capable, resourceful, and self-reliant. The result is one of the most compelling protagonists in gaming history, a girl who is funny and fierce and deeply scarred all at once. Marlene, voiced by Merle Dandridge, is the moral gray zone of the story. She is not a villain. She genuinely believes in the cause. She loves Ellie, and she is willing to sacrifice her for what she believes is the greater good. Gameplay and technical innovation. Naughty Dog built The Last of Us on a proprietary engine using Havok physics, designed to deliver a level of physical realism that was groundbreaking for 2013. The defining technological achievement of the game is the artificial intelligence system known as balance of power. Rather than following simple attack patterns, enemies in The Last of Us behave dynamically. Human enemies respond emotionally to the situation around them. They become angry when a companion is killed. They warn each other of danger. If Joel gains a tactical advantage, if he takes down multiple enemies quickly or forces the others into a corner, the remaining survivors may become visibly frightened, hesitating before pressing the attack. The system constantly evaluates who holds the advantage and adjusts enemy behavior accordingly. This approach is known as dynamic stealth, and it allows players to move fluidly between careful, silent movement and open combat. Players can throw bricks or bottles to create distractions, use the environment to set up silent eliminations, or simply choose to fight through an encounter head-on. The Listen mode ability allows Joel to perceive the movements of nearby enemies through walls, giving players the information they need to plan encounters carefully. Ellie, as an AI companion, was designed not to be a burden. She actively helps Joel during combat, calling out enemy positions, throwing objects to distract opponents, and using her knife to attack enemies who overpower him. Crucially, enemies never target Ellie directly, a deliberate design decision to prevent frustration. The crafting system operates in real time, with no pause menu to offer safety. To combine materials, alcohol and rags for a Molotov, sugar and blades for a nail bomb, medicine and alcohol for a health kit, Joel must open his backpack and remain fully exposed to attack. The scarcity of resources and the vulnerability of the crafting process create persistent tension. During development, a mechanic called crouch sprint was prototyped and then removed. It allowed players to move quickly while remaining completely silent, and was deemed too powerful, undermining the game's careful balance of challenge and tension. The game contains 13 locked doors that can only be opened using shiv weapons, rewarding exploration with supplies and story details. There are also 37 optional conversations between Joel and Ellie, triggered by examining certain objects or standing in certain locations. These quiet moments are where much of their relationship is built. Music and atmosphere. The soul of The Last of Us, beyond its story and mechanics, lives in its soundtrack. The score was composed by Gustavo Santaolalla, an Argentine musician known for his work on the films Brokeback Mountain and Babel. The soundtrack was released on June 11, 2013, 3 days before the game itself. Santaolalla's compositions are built on minimalism, sparse guitar lines, long, aching silences. Melodies that feel weathered and incomplete, like fragments of something that once existed and can never be fully recovered. The music does not dramatize the world's collapse, it mourns it. This musical philosophy mirrors the game's visual design. Cities swallowed by vegetation, highways cracked and overgrown, shopping malls turned into ruins where deer now wander. The world is dying. But nature is, slowly and indifferently, reclaiming what was taken from it. Reception and legacy. The Last of Us was released on June 14, 2013 for the PlayStation 3. The critical response was extraordinary. The game achieved a Metacritic score of 95 out of 100, receiving perfect scores from major publications including IGN, Eurogamer, and Edge magazine. It won 62 major awards from 89 nominations, making it one of the most decorated games ever released. In its first 3 weeks on sale, it sold 3.4 million copies. A remarkable number for a new intellectual property in a mature, narrative-driven genre. The legacy of The Last of Us extends far beyond its initial release. In 2014, a remastered version launched for PlayStation 4, taking advantage of the new hardware. The left-behind downloadable content expanded Ellie's backstory, exploring her relationship with her best friend Riley before the events of the main game. A full remake, The Last of Us Part 1, was released for PlayStation 5 and Windows PC in 2022, rebuilding the game from the ground up with entirely new visuals and technology. Conclusion: The Last of Us Part 1 is not simply a survival game. It is a story about love and the terrible things love can make us do. It is about a man who lost a daughter and found, without meaning to, a reason to exist again, and what he chose to protect that reason, regardless of the cost to the world. Joel made his choice in that hospital. Was it right? Was it an act of love or an act of selfishness? Was he saving Ellie, or was he condemning everyone else? The game does not answer. It never does. That silence is the point. Thank you for watching. If you found this breakdown valuable, leave a comment with your thoughts on Joel's final decision. Subscribe for more deep dives into the stories that shaped gaming. And we will see you in the next one.